Welcome to our weekly Forex Forecast, and today we'll be looking at analysis for the week of May 20th to the 24th, 2019. Just a quick disclaimer here before we get started. This is for educational purposes only. Trading is a risky business, so please be careful with your money. All right, as usual, we'll start off by taking a look at our calendar here. So this week, my apologies. I am a little under the weather here, so so please bear with me as we go through this. Okay, so starting off here, we are going to take a look at. So there's some central bankers speaking again. Sorry, this is the wrong one. We want this week. There we go, that's better. Okay, so Monday, we have the current account here for Euro. This will be important even though it's not marked in red. These numbers are always important, especially now when we have trade war issues going on. And then we have Fed Chair Powell speaking. We have a couple of other central bankers here as well, but we have monetary policy meeting minutes from Australia here. So this will be very important because Australia, or last time market was expecting Australia to change the rates and they did not change it. So now the meeting minutes will be important because market will be looking to see how are they thinking about this, when will they potentially change the rates. So any kind of comments around that or discussion around potentially making or lowering the interest rates will be important. And then we have inflation report hearings. This is also important here for the pound here because generally if there is something negative here, it will have a negative impact on the British pound. But if it's positive, it's in line with expectations and they're looking at inflation growing smoothly, that will be good for British pound. And then we have more FOMC members speaking. So these days with monetary policy changing, it's very important to make a note when the central bankers are speaking because a lot of times what they say can move the markets. And then we have retail sales numbers here for New Zealand. That will be important. We have RBA Governor Lau speaking again after the monetary policy meetings. So his speech will become very important, especially because they did not raise rates like everybody is expecting last time. And then we have here our CPI numbers. These are the inflation numbers, the inflation hearings we just talked about. So if the inflation numbers are growing here, that would be good. But if they start to drop, that will send a negative message to the market. So these numbers are important. But pound has actually, UK has had good inflation numbers. So generally this is good, but if it starts to falter, that will have a negative impact. And then we have core retail sales here for Canada, FOMC meeting minutes. So this is a second central bank this week here. So this one, again, just like the RBA or Australian dollar meeting minutes, nothing, usually these ones are not as important as the one where there's conference right after it. But this one here, again, it's just to see what they are thinking, like what are they discussing in regards to economic forecasts and also in regards to potential interest rate decisions. And then Thursday here, we have a lot of PMI numbers. PMI numbers are very important. They are leading indicators in terms of fundamentals. So these will be important out of the Eurozone. And then we have parliamentary elections here, as well as ECB monetary policy meeting minutes. So meeting minutes from 3 central bankers or central banks this week. Again, they will have an impact on the euro. And going into Friday here, we have parliamentary elections still. We have retail sales numbers for pound, and we have core durable goods. So overall, though, this could be a volatile week here. So just keep that in mind. A lot of stuff going on here this week. All right, let's move on to our charts now. We'll start off by taking a look at our euro dollar here. So last week, it was into this support and resistance level. We did have a bullish candle, but it was into support resistance level, so it has dropped from there. So we are still staying in this range for the last 4 weeks. We have been in this range here. So right now, this looks bearish here. As we can see, price had been in a range for quite some time on the way up, and it's doing the same on the way down. So right now, this is in a range. It's holding below the previous resistance, which means it is bearish, and the candle is bearish as well. So looking for it to drop. First target is 1120, 1.1120. And then below that, it will be 1.1020. So this is bearish here. Bias is bearish for euro dollar for this week. Pound dollar here, this has dropped quite nicely. We were bearish last week, and a big drop here. So now in terms of our target, bias is still bearish here, and target is 1.2500. Or 1.2500 here. So with this one, watch out for pullbacks here. We've had a nice drop, so watch out for a pullback. 1.2850 level could be a good level for a potential pullback, but then I'm looking for price to drop. So bias is bearish here for pound dollar. Aussie dollar here, this one also dropped quite nicely here, and we have a nice bearish candle close. We had a pin bar on this one last week, and now we have a nice bearish candle. One thing to keep in mind here is we are coming into some support areas here. So very, very close to our support. So if you look all the way to the left here, see, this was the level. So we are coming very close to that, and there could be a reaction there. So that's a first target. And then we're looking at the bottom of this flash crash pin here. So bias here is still a bearish, and I will watch out for potential pullbacks into that, and then looking for a drop. So first target 0.6820, which is not too far from current level, and then 0.6750. And then we are coming into some, pretty pretty low levels that we haven't, this pair hasn't visited in a long time, and there could be support there or buyers sitting there. So be mindful of that. New Zealand dollar here, this is looking bearish as well. We had this neutral candle last week. So this week we have seen a drop. So bias here is also bearish, looking for price to drop here. So for this one, a first target would be 65, which is fairly close here. So 60, I was going to say 6,500, but that's fairly close. So next one here is 64. 60, so I think we could move that all the way down here to 64.30 level. So bearish bias here for New Zealand dollar. Dollar CAD here, this one is still trading in a range. So if we take a look at the weekly, we see that price has stayed in this range for several weeks now. It did go and test the high, excuse me, several times, and hasn't really done much in that regard. So it's still sitting in the range, and as such, I would look to just keep trading the range on this one, basically until such time the price comes out of the range. So for now, dollar CAD is range bound, and bias on this would be neutral here. Euro pound here, this one has been moving up steadily. So second week here, and now we are kind of out of this range that it was trading in. So this is looking bullish at the moment. Next target is 88. 40 level back into this previous support resistance level. So bias right now is bullish. And in terms of our pullback, we could look for a pullback either into 0.8720 or slightly lower into 0.8680 level. So bias right now is bullish for our euro pound. Euro Swiss franc here. Bias, let's take a look. This one has dropped. We had back-to-back pins on this one. So bias is bearish here and looking for price to drop. So we have a bearish bias here. Next target will be to the downside. The first one we're looking at 1.1220, and then below that 1.1160. So bearish bias here for Euro Swiss franc. And then moving on to pound Swiss franc, this one had a pretty good drop here. Last week, our bias was bearish because price had rejected the high here. So we've seen a big drop. Now looking at a further bearish move. Now do keep in mind, a pound has dropped quite a bit. And when we see these big drops, many times we can get pullbacks from there. So keep that in mind, because we could get pullbacks here, which would mean that it could move in the opposite direction. So for now, this is what I'm looking at, 1.2940 as a pullback level and then a drop. So bias is bearish for pound Swiss franc. Dollar Swiss franc here, this one hasn't done much because US dollar was strong and Swiss franc was strong. So from a weekly perspective, we see that price dropped and then pulled back. So we have a doji here. So it looks slightly bullish, but if it doesn't go above 1.0125 here, it could continue to drop. But if it breaks that level, and then we're looking for price to go up higher. But this was not the best one to trade because we have two strong currencies. So usually we want to pair a strong currency with a weaker currency so we can actually get a good move. So this one, not as good. But for now, this looks like it could move higher. So, but if it doesn't break 1.0125, then it could come back into this bottom here again. All right, next one is pound yen here. Pound yen, we were looking for a drop, and it is. We did get a drop. So bias is bearish still. And our next target level for this one will be 137 here. So looking for a further drop. And again, like I said, for pullbacks, keep pullbacks in mind. We have had big drops in pound. So this is what I would look at. So pull back into 141.20 potentially, but looking for a drop into 137. So bearish bias here this week for pound yen. Euro yen here, this one's kind of traded in this range. It's still holding that level here. So we have had a drop. So we do have bearishness in this, but see how it's holding above this level here. So going back to the daily here, we see it's just sitting here. Hasn't actually really gone lower. So with this one, it's interesting here. The way I'm looking at it, bias is still to the downside, but it's starting to round off here. And if it doesn't break below 122.50, if it doesn't hold below that level, we could see it come back or go back higher. So I would keep that in mind. So bias is still bearish here, but we do need to see a drop below 122.50 level and hold below that level. Otherwise, I think it could come back and start going towards this 123.50 level. The way it's sitting right now, it could easily do that. We have 3 neutral candles back to back, so price does not have momentum to the downside. And for it to continue, we do need to see that momentum. So for now, bias is bearish. 121.80 is the first target. And this one could go lower, I think 121.30 or even slightly lower into 120.80. So bias for now is bearish, but like I said, if it doesn't hold below 122.50, it could turn around. Dollar yen here, again, this was probably not the best because we have two currencies that are major currency, or that are both strong currencies. So not the best one to trade at the moment. This one looks like it could go higher. So 110.30 or potentially into 110.80, but would not be my favorite one here because again, they are two strong currencies. Aussie yen, this one is bearish as well. We have seen a nice drop in this one. So bias is bearish. Next target is 74.20 level. And then we are back into all the way into 72.50. So bias is bearish. And with this one, I think we could, again, if we start to get pullbacks, it could do a pullback like that. But bias for now is bearish for Aussie yen. New Zealand yen here. New Zealand was actually strong compared to Australian dollar. So compared to US or compared to our yen, this was weak. But overall, New Zealand kind of held its own this week. But for this one here, New Zealand yen, this is bias is bearish. So watch out for pullback here. This is a very important level here. So we have dropped below that. And next target is 71.20, which is fairly close here. And below that, we are looking at 69.80. So bearish bias for New Zealand yen as well. CAD yen, last one here. CAD was actually fairly robust. It held its own even against the US dollar and against yen. So it was quite strong, actually. That's why dollar CAD is range bound at the moment, because they're both strong currencies right now. And Canadian dollar held on to its strength. So that's why we saw it drop. And then we had favorable data come up, which caused it to go higher. So this one, I would say the bias right now is neutral, and it doesn't really have strong directional bias. So this may not be the best trade again until we actually see either yen go in the other direction or Canadian dollar weaken or strengthen. So moving on now to our not equities, to our commodities. So we were looking for we had some bullishness, so price went up, and then we have seen a drop in our gold. So this looks bearish. So we have a strong bearish pin bar here. So bias is to the downside, and first target is 1268.20. So into the bottom here. Or 1266 actually, I should say. So bias is bearish here, looking for a further drop. So this is the range that it was trading in for a while here. It did go up to the next level because there was that bullishness in it, and then it has dropped. So bias is bearish, 1266, and then 1258 will be the second target. Silver here, silver is also bearish. Silver was bearish last week here as well. So bias continues to be bearish. Next target here will be 14.11. So still bearish bias for silver here. Oil. Oil's interesting. Oil's been trading in this range for some time here, and it tried to go out of the range. So this is a daily chart that we are looking at. It tried to go out of the range, but then pulled back in. So we have a small pin bar here on Friday. So I would say this is still range bound. I would treat it as a range bound, and I will look for price to come back towards the bottom of the range here. So bias is bearish, but within the range here. So looking for it to drop towards the bottom of the range here at 60.50. Copper is looking bearish as well. We have seen a drop here, and now looking for it to drop further. 2.65 is the target, so bearish bias. Ooh, Bitcoin, big drop here. So we were talking about this range last week, or this level here. Price had gone up quite a bit, and we had talked about how if it doesn't go through here, it's likely to drop. What happens is when we have an inefficient move up like this, we can get a big decline here as well, and that's what we are seeing here. So for now, bias is bearish. Like I said, these are not my current charts on the weekend, so you may want to check the current chart. But because it got stuck here into this resistance, so bias right now is bearish and it could drop further. All right, let's take a look at equities and then we will wrap things up here. In terms of our equities here, price has dropped, but it is still a neutral candle here. We don't really have a strong candle in either direction. So I would say it's neutral for now. And I would look to trade the top and the bottom of this candle. But for now, bias is neutral here for S&P. NASDAQ here is it's the same thing here. We see that price had dropped and then it has pulled back. So as these comments are coming out in regards to what's going on with the trade negotiations and such, things have been changing. So price was dropping when we heard that US and China had put tariffs on each other and the talks were actually breaking down. But then this previous week, comments came out that they're kind of in the core of the talks right now. So that actually pushed things up. And there was another comment about, tariffs not being imposed on auto for the time being. So this was seen as positive news by the equity markets as well. And hence we saw a price pull back. So NASDAQ here is looking neutral as well. It could go in either direction. So not much of a directional bias at the moment. This one, it dropped, and this is DAX here. It dropped and it has pulled back up again, but the candle is still neutral. So we could, again, we're looking at trading the two, the top and the bottom. So I would look to trade the top and the bottom of these. If price goes into the high here, we could look for a potential drop. If it goes into the bottom, we could look for a potential move up. But right now, this is looking neutral. FTSE here, this one as well, price had dropped and then it has pushed back up. So it hasn't cleared this hurdle here at 73.70, but should it go to past it, then we could see it go all the way into 7,500. So for now, bullish bias, but it has to get past the support resistance level. This is an important level here at 73.70. So if it holds past that, it can go to the next level. So bullish for FTSE. Nikkei here, this one as well does not look that strong. It's just it's an indecision looking candle here. It has rejected the bottom. So we could see a continuation to the upside, but I would be careful with this one. Bias is still neutral. So we need to just keep an eye on the developments for this week. So overall, stock market has been back and forth. So we need to just stay on top of it to see where it's going, and it will have an impact on the yen crosses as well. So that's all I have. If you guys want to download the spreadsheet that goes with this, you can go to tradingwithvenus.com/forecast, and you'll be able to download the spreadsheet. So let me see if I can put it over here. So it would be trading, oops, if I can, let me get a new one here. So trading with Venus.com/forecast. That's what we're looking for. If you want to download the spreadsheet that goes with it, once you sign up, you will get it automatically. But if you haven't if you have not signed up, you can sign up here. You only need to do it once, but you'll be able to. I will send it out every week or after that. So that's it for today. Any questions before we wrap it up? All right, so no questions. So have a wonderful rest of the weekend, and I will see you again next week. Bye for now.